At 19, she faced an unthinkable marriage, but his shocking wedding gift transformed everything. Emily Thompson stood before the mirror, the pristine white of her wedding dress stark against the frayed edges of her dreams. The intricate lace felt like a shackle binding her to a future crafted by others. She could almost hear the whispers of her neighbors, the concerned glances exchanged over supper tables. "Emily is marrying James Harrington," they would say, "a fine match." Yet the reflection didn't match the expectations of those familiar faces. Instead, it mirrored the unease gnawing at her. She felt like a ghost, haunting her own wedding. The church was a floral haven, bright white lilies offering an unwelcome contrast to Emily's turbulent heart. Each smiling face she passed evoked a sickening churn in her stomach. What had she sacrificed for this display of commitment? James, with his charming brown hair and warm smile, promised a stable life to her struggling family, but at what cost to her own soul? They were sitting in the pews, dressed in their Sunday best, each hopeful glance a dagger that twisted deeper into her. Suddenly, her doubt began to spiral into something sharper. What kind of daughter would she be if her marriage meant giving up her lifelong dream of becoming an art teacher? She had felt that calling since childhood, long before it was masked by family duty and societal pressure. Each brushstroke had been a refuge. Now they felt like relics of a life that wouldn't be hers. Just then, amidst the rising dread, she reminded herself of the weight of tradition. Standing there, her mind raced. Loyalty ran deep, but was it right to measure loyalty against her passions? Just as her anxiety peaked, the ceremony soared to an emotional climax. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. And then came the moment that shifted everything, the unexpected wedding gift. "I got this for you," James declared, proudly presenting an envelope that seemed to shimmer with promise. As Emily grasped it, her heart thudded loudly in her chest, an unsettling mix of hope and fear. The acceptance letter to the Art Institute of Chicago, a place she had only dared to dream about, awaited her trembling hands. Joy swelled within her like the rush of wind before a storm, yet it was laced with confusion. Murmurs rippled through the congregation as they grasped the implications of her decision. How could she leave behind her duties? How? Could they think that art outweighed family honor? Just as the warmth of possibility filled her, another ache unfolded. James's admission that he had procured the scholarship through family connections, hidden in silence, cloaked in shame. Suddenly, Emily felt trapped between two worlds, both of which threatened to swallow her whole. The thought of chasing her dreams felt both exhilarating and devastating. Was she ready to defy the expectations pressing down on her shoulders? Moments ticked by as the choir's haunting notes echoed in the air, a pause so heavy it felt almost prophetic. In that silence she stood, paralyzed. There was a choice to make, a decision that could shatter lives and bend futures. Would she be that brave woman? Or would the constraints of loyalty bind her more tightly than the fabric of her dress? As the congregation held its collective breath, Emily stood frozen, knowing that whatever path she chose would echo long after this moment. The thought of it, the weight of her uncertain future, consumed her. What kind of woman did she want to be? The heavy silence enveloped her, and she teetered on the edge of an insurmountable decision. Emily swallowed hard, her fingers clutching the edge of the envelope as if it were a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. The world around her blurred. the smiles of her friends and family morphing into an accusatory chorus. They expected the usual script: vows, a shared future, the inevitable resignation to a life half-lived. Yet here was an opportunity. The Art Institute, a sliver of hope wrapped in the thin paper of that envelope. Taking a deep breath, Emily closed her eyes briefly, imagining the colorful chaos of an art studio. Canvas splattered with paint, the smell of turpentine, and the unmistakable warmth of creativity igniting her spirit. These images collided violently with the reality of her imminent wedding vows. Was this gift a chance or a burden, a threat disguised as a blessing? Emily? The deep timbre of James's voice juxtaposed melodious wedding harmonies, jolting her back to the moment. She opened her eyes wide and filled with both fear and determination. The weight of everyone's expectations suddenly felt suffocating. She looked at James, his expression inscrutable, betraying nothing of his thoughts. Was this man really an ally to her dreams, or merely a pawn in the game laid out before her? What if pursuing art sparked resentment and destruction? Is this what you truly want? The thought echoed in her mind, but it felt more imposing than inquisitive. Instead of answering it, she turned her gaze outward, searching for affirmation, for guidance in the sea of familiar faces. Yet all she found was concern, layered with expectations that shadowed the richness of her desires. In that spotlight of uncertainty, her thoughts began to untangle. These weren't just the whispers of a judgmental community. It was the continuous thread of self-doubt that had woven itself around her since childhood. A fine match, they said. Family pride. What did any of that hold when compared to her own aspirations? The more she grappled with her thoughts, the clearer they became. Emily felt her heart thunder as she processed her surroundings, the stunning floral arrangements, the pristine aisle, the reverence embedded in the ceremony. All of it was meant to signify love and commitment, but the storm roiling within her felt like betrayal both to herself and to those who cherished her. Suddenly emboldened, she realized that art was never merely a hobby. It resonated in her soul, burned within her veins. What if she could channel that energy? What if she could carve a path that merged duty and passion? But how? It would require sacrifices, hard choices oscillating between dreams and obligations. The orchestral swell built around her, and with it her determination solidified. She straightened her posture, inhaled deeply, and faced James once more. "I need time," she declared, the words spilling from her with newfound clarity. The air was charged with surprise. Even the choir seemed to falter. Emily stood at the precipice of uncertainty. She was aware that she might not just be undoing a marriage, but also pulling the threads on a tightly knit family tapestry. Yet for the first time she felt a stirring of agency, a hint of reclaiming her identity. The congregation murmured, uncertainty rippling through the audience. What repercussions lay ahead? Who would be disappointed or outraged? Would James support her newfound determination, or would he see her as a petulant bride unwilling to be molded? As Emily made her stand, the gravity of the moment washed over her, inviting both hope and fear. Her next steps would be pivotal, transforming how she viewed herself and her aspirations. The question lingered on her mind. In a world straining against her choices, could she redefine loyalty, not as a chain, but as a bridge that could still lead her home? The knot in her stomach tightened, signaling that more than a wedding was at stake. This decision could very well reframe the rest of her life. The moment was hers to seize, the stakes high as she reflected on her identity and future. But what awaited her on this newly forged path? The time had come to face not just her family's expectations, but also the reflection of the woman she was becoming. Emily stepped away from the altar, the eyes of family and friends boring into her with a mix of shock and confusion. She felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with disbelief.
Doubt still nagged at her thoughts, but a powerful wave of conviction pushed most of it aside. The crisp fall air outside the chapel wrapped around her as she took her first steps into this uncharted territory. She was unsure of where to turn next, but at least she was free to choose. The gravel crunched under her feet as she walked toward the old oak tree on the far side of the churchyard, a spot she often visited.
As a child, this tree had witnessed many of her daydreams, painted fantasies of becoming an artist, splashing color across blank canvases without the weight of expectation anchoring her down. Now, facing its sturdy trunk, she allowed herself a moment to breathe and reflect on the gravity of the choice she had made. "Why did I say that?" she whispered aloud, the words escaping in a shaky exhale. The moment coursed through her veins, from exhilaration to terror and back again. If she had stepped back into an identity fashioned by a wedding dress and matrimonial bliss, instead she had adorned herself in ambiguity, each option spiraling into outcomes yet to be seen. Her mind raced with visions of colors and canvases, the promise of creative expression. But hovering just beneath the surface of those fantasies was an equally daunting question. Would she have the courage to pursue those visions? Her past decisions had been grounded in compliance. Would art be any different? As she stood there, her cell phone buzzed in her pocket. The sound cut through her thoughts like a jolt of electricity. It was a text from her best friend, Sarah. "What just happened? Are you okay?" Emily hesitated. Then, exhaling deeply, she typed back slowly. "I don't know. I need space right now." Waiting for her friend's reply, the gravity of her choice settled in once more. Space. Was that what she truly needed, or was it just another escape? The idea of running felt instilled with bitter sweetness. She craved independence, but feared loneliness. She had to embrace this turmoil, not as a tormentor, but as the catalyst for change. Suddenly her phone lit up again. This time it was James. "Emily, where are you?" A pang of guilt twisted in her stomach. He had been her pillar, the one she could lean on, yet today she had challenged that very foundation. Instead of panicking, she took a step back mentally. James represented a life she had constructed, comforting yet confining. But with every moment that passed, her resolve grew stronger. She had envisioned painting vividly, allowing her heart and soul to translate onto canvas unfettered by expectations. Yet beyond that canvas lay the messy reality of relationships. She considered the conversations yet to be had, the potential of remaining connected to James while demanding autonomy. Resolving to confront him, she typed back quickly, "I need to talk. Can we meet?" The uncertainty of how he might react sent a tremor through her. She understood that in establishing her independence, she might put everything that had been built between them at risk. Yet the perception of loyalty was shifting into a deeper understanding that loyalty must first begin with oneself. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the yard. Emily knew these were not mere shadows of doubt, but the silhouettes of an evolving identity, one that demanded authenticity. As a painter, it was her duty to push the boundaries of her vision. Now she must do the same with her life. As she turned away from the oak tree, a determination sparked within her. She was ready to wrestle with the future, whatever it held. But with every step she took back toward the chaos of family and expectations, she felt the weight of her next confrontation settling in. How could she articulate her desires without further fracturing the delicate ties binding her to James? With this new urgency, the door for reconciliation with her own truth remained ajar, yet it lay overshadowed by the encroaching demand of damaged trust. What would she reveal, and would it lead to liberation or further isolation? The moment had arrived to truly discover the depths of her desires, one that could redefine everything. Emily took a deep breath as she stepped away from the oak tree, sensing the subtle shift within herself. The quiet of the churchyard was a stark contrast to the whirlwind of thoughts inside her mind. What was once a cozy acceptance of a life planned out now felt stifling, like a blanket that had grown too warm. She couldn't simply revert to the status quo after the bold choice she had just made. The world ahead felt full yet daunting, and she struggled to find clarity. As she navigated the gravel path back to the chapel, a quiet determination settled over her. She wasn't merely leaving behind what had been expected of her. She was stepping into a canvas of possibilities, ready to paint her own narrative. Tonight was not just about articulating her feelings to James, but about reclaiming her own voice, a voice drenched in the pigments of her unfulfilled dreams of artistry. Her phone buzzed again. It was Sarah, this time with a more frantic energy. "Emily, please, at least let me know you're okay." Emily paused, feeling a mix of affection and frustration. Did they all comprehend that she didn't want to feel okay? She needed to feel the full weight of this moment, the tension, the fear, and the excitement, but mostly the transformation. "I will be. Just give me a moment," she replied, putting her phone back into her pocket. The unexpected silence felt comforting, urging her to reflect on how to navigate the conversation with James. What did she want to say? Perhaps more importantly, what did she need to express for herself? Emily saw the gathering shadows and realized they mirrored her thoughts. The darker fears threatened to consume her, while the light of hope flickered just beyond. In taking the time away, she was confronted with what it meant to long for independence. Was there courage in vulnerability, or would it crack the foundation of their relationship altogether? A familiar knot twisted in her stomach as memories of James flooded her mind. He was kind, considerate, and had always sought to lift her. But that kindness had inadvertently stymied her own ambitions. He often placed her aspirations secondary to their shared dreams. As she made her way up the steps of the chapel, the haunting echo of whispers played in her mind. Was she permanently damaging what they shared? Or was she merely setting the stage for a more authentic connection? The idea of losing him, and yet gaining herself, was both exhilarating and excruciating. With each creak of the chapel door, she felt closer to the core of her dilemma. She envisioned herself before him, painting not just a picture of her feelings, but revealing the raw hues of her desires and fears. She was ready to wear her truth like vibrant strokes on a canvas, a chaotic swirl of colors that had the potential to become a beautiful masterpiece. The moment came as she spotted James waiting near the altar, an expression of worry etched on his face. Her heart raced, and she steeled herself for this crucial conversation. She had envisioned scenarios that led to confrontation, but nothing penetrated the thick haze of her uncertainty quite like seeing him. The churning inner dialogue screamed at her instinctual fear. Would he understand or retreat further into confusion? "Hey," he said gently, attempting to bridge the distance that had formed between them. Emily swallowed hard, the tang of anxiety sharp on her tongue. Here was the moment she had wrestled with, the chance to carve out her identity despite the risks involved. "I needed to talk about what happened," she began, and a weight of anticipation filled the space between them. But as she watched the flicker of hope clash with dread in his eyes, she couldn't shake the feeling that this would either enlighten their path together or change everything irrevocably. What would happen when they began to dissect their realities? Would love be strong enough to transcend the fractures? With their future hanging in the balance, Emily knew she needed to navigate the conversation with precision, each word layering upon the other like paint upon the canvas she yearned to create. The confrontation she had been dreading was about to unfold, and when it did, would it illuminate the truth she so desperately sought, or shadow the essence of who they had been? Emily braced herself, the precipice of change looming larger than ever. The silence hung heavily between them, a tangible thread weaving doubt and hope together. Emily could feel her pulse quicken. This was the moment where everything could pivot. She took a step closer, the chapel's warmth enveloping her as if to shield her from the chill of uncertainty. "James," she started, "I feel like we need to talk about us, about what I want." The words tasted foreign, yet liberating as they spilled from her mouth, exposing the raw nerve of her vulnerability. She had rehearsed this, imbuing her thoughts with equal parts fear and empowerment, but nothing could prepare her for the reality of the moment. James's brow furrowed, the worry deepening into concern. "I'm listening," he replied, his eyes steady yet searching, as if he was ready to uncover layers she'd kept hidden for too long. "I've been feeling trapped. I love you, but I'm not sure I know myself anymore." The admission lingered in the air, its weight both refreshing and terrifying. She took a breath, steadying herself against the tempest of tumultuous emotions that threatened to topple her resolve. "I've put my dreams aside for what we envisioned together, and now I'm afraid they're slipping away." His expression shifted, surprise replacing the initial worry. "Emily, it's okay to have dreams. I thought we were building towards something together. I didn't think you felt stifled." Another wave of determination crashed over her, urging her forward. "That's the problem. It's not just about us anymore." A mix of regret and clarity infused her voice as she continued. "I want to be an artist. I want to explore that part of myself before it's too late. I don't want to look back years from now and wish I had taken the chance." James's stillness interrupted her train of thought. "Are you saying you want to end this?" The question hung, striking a chord of the very fear she had sought to confront. "No, I'm not saying that." Her heart raced as she sensed the distance widening. "But I need you to understand this isn't just about you or us. This is about finding who I am apart from what's expected. Can't you see that?" Empathy flickered in his eyes, yet confusion shadowed it. "I want to support you, Emily. I just didn't know you felt this way." The raw honesty in his voice nudged her further down this unknown path. Emily inhaled deeply, as if gathering the courage that had eluded her for so long. "I want to explore opportunities, take risks, maybe even relocate for a while, attend workshops. But you need to decide if you can be with someone who might not always put our relationship first." The air grew thick with unspoken words, the gravity of her statement hanging heavily between them. Would he grasp the depth of her desire for independence? Would he see her choices not as a betrayal, but as a journey toward mutual growth? His silence stretched, a signal of contemplation, and it felt like a test of her faith, not just in their relationship, but in herself. She had been building up to this moment every day, not knowing if it would dissolve her fears or amplify them tenfold. The weight of uncharted territory surged beneath the surface, sparking a new sense of urgency. "Maybe we need distance then," he finally suggested, his voice softer now. "Space for us to navigate our own paths. If we're meant to be, we'll make our way back to each other." His words resonated within her like a siren call. It was a risk, one that could fracture their bond or illuminate their true selves. She could feel the edges of uncertainty pull at her, but beneath it lay a rumble of fierce determination. To grow meant embracing change, to evolve, accepting the unknown. "And if this space reveals that we are not meant to be?" she asked, the unasked question resting heavy on her heart. "Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but I refuse to hold you back, Emily," he said quietly. "Just promise me you won't forget us no matter what." The gravity of their pact settled over her, an uncharted promise that terrified and exhilarated her. This was the beginning of a new story, one where she reclaimed not just her artistic aspirations, but the very essence of who she was. And as he reached for her hand, she realized this moment held the power she had long been searching for. The world stretched before her, vast and daunting, yet stunning in its potential. "Let's commit to this journey, and to ourselves," she whispered, a renewed sense of purpose filling her spirit. But even as they stood united by their shared decision, a question loomed on the horizon. Would they both find the strength needed to transform as individuals while holding on to the love they had built together? The path ahead remained shrouded in uncertainty. But as each step beckoned with possibility, Emily couldn't help but wonder if the true artistry lay in the journey itself, or in the revelations yet to come. Emily stepped out of the chapel, the sweetness of vows exchanged still clinging to her senses, now a distant echo. She felt the breeze wrap around her, invigorating yet foreign. Each gust seemed to signal her newfound freedom, yet it mingled with the heaviness of her decision. This would not merely be a retreat, it was an expedition into the depths of herself. With every stride away from the familiar, she felt the weight of expectations slowly shift. Each step away from James was also a step closer to her calling as an artist, something she had neglected for too long. But with this realization came the pang of doubt. Would space transform them into strangers, or would they emerge stronger? This new question stalked her thoughts, overwhelming yet exhilarating. The city bus rattled down its track, its inconsistent rhythm matching the turbulence within her. As she sat down, she pulled her sketchbook from her bag. The blank pages welcomed her with a hushed whisper, urging her to fill them with colors and shapes that lived only in her imagination. The urge to create surged within her, a hunger to brush strokes on canvas, to bring to life the visions she had shelved away. Striding through the art district, she passed galleries proudly displaying vibrant, compelling work. She stopped at one in particular, an unassuming space named Raw Expressions. There, the walls were adorned with the work of emerging artists who dared to showcase their vulnerability. The pieces were bold and honest, and Emily felt a simmering excitement stirring in her chest. She had taken her first step toward understanding herself, yet fear wrapped its fingers around her, questioning her right to belong. Maybe this is
"Where I start?" she whispered to herself, brushing her fingers against the cool glass that showcased exquisite pieces of labor and passion. The proprietor, a woman with hair as wild as her art, caught her eye and smiled. It was an invitation, a chance to connect over shared passions. All she had to do was initiate. "Excuse me," Emily said, her voice faltering slightly. I'd love to know more about the artists here. How do you select their work?" The woman's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "It's all about authenticity. I want this space to be a platform for those who want to showcase their truth through art. What about you? Are you an artist?" Caught in the whirlwind of her clarity, Emily hesitated. The question came laced with a heavy weight of desire and doubt. "I used to be. I mean, I've always dreamed of it, but—" The excuse hung in the air, enticing her with its possibility while anchoring her in insecurity. "You don't need to filter yourself here," the woman interrupted gently. "We all started somewhere." An ember sparked within Emily. "I want to create again, but it feels so far out of reach." Art isn't about perfection, it's about expression. Find your voice, even if it's a whisper at first. Would you like to participate in our next open studio session? The invitation shimmered with opportunity and dread. Would she take the risk of exposing her dreams in a space full of strangers? The stirring within her demanded she seize it, transcending all she had allowed to hold her back. She had taken one significant step toward change. This was the next. As she hesitated, battling her instinct to retreat, she felt a rush of determination. Yes, yes, I would love to. The weight lifted as the prospect of growth loomed larger, fueled by tenacity. This chance could reveal her hidden talents, and in that moment she understood the foundational transformation was already underway. Each brushstroke would mark a confrontation with a fear that had long held her captive. Yet, just as excitement enveloped her, she recalled her earlier conversation with James. What if he disapproved of her involvement? Or worse, what if they drifted apart due to the paths they now forged? Would she be brave enough to face these potential fractures? Or would the fear of losing the love she cherished hold her back from her destiny as an artist? As she exited the gallery, the world seemed illuminated, her universe expanding and contracting with possibility. Emily realized she was at a crossroads, reflective of her choices echoing into both unknown growth and uncertainty. The road to fulfillment loomed ahead with an array of colors waiting to splash across her canvas, but the looming question flickered like a neon sign in her mind. Could she truly embrace her aspirations without losing sight of the love that still tethered her? Emily awoke the next morning with the sun streaming through her window, illuminating the forgotten corners of her bedroom.
The exhilaration from her decision lingered like an enticing melody in her mind, making her heart race with anticipation. Yet beneath that excitement simmered an undercurrent of anxiety. The open studio session loomed ahead, an opportunity draped in both promise and uncertainty. As she prepared for the day, Emily meticulously selected her outfit, choosing colors that felt vibrant yet understated. Every piece of clothing seemed to carry the weight of her emerging identity. She glanced at her reflection in the mirror, searching for signs of the artist she aspired to be. It was a battle between the dynamics of her past and the aspirations that flickered within her like a flame craving oxygen. She ventured outside, the cool air awakening her senses. The streets pulsed with life, yet within her a whisper of self-doubt echoed. What if you don't belong? What if they see you as a fraud? Those thoughts wove through her consciousness, repeating like a refrain. But deeper than the fear was the undeniable call to create. The grounding thought that pulled her forward was the idea of transformation, the desire not only to be seen, but to share her inner visions with like-minded individuals who understand the struggle of artistic pursuit. Arriving at Raw Expressions, the space emanated a welcoming aura. The proprietor, whose name she learned was Maya, guided her to a large communal table where other aspiring artists worked amidst scattered paint palettes, canvases, and brushes. There was an electric energy in the room, a shared heartbeat throbbing with dreams and aspirations. Emily had imagined herself as an observer, an outsider peering into this world. But upon stepping inside, the vibrant atmosphere enveloped her. She was compelled to approach the table, where an array of colors beckoned her to join. Concealing her apprehension, she pulled her sketchbook from her bag, the pages still pristine, a blank canvas reflecting her own uncharted terrain. Maya, sensing her hesitance, approached. "You have something you want to express, don't you?" Emily nodded, surprised by how easily Maya recognized the turmoil within her. "I think so. I just don't know how to start." "Just begin with a line or a color. Let it flow without judgment," Maya urged, her voice both soothing and invigorating. Determined to silence her critics, both internal and external, Emily took a deep breath, dipped her brush into a vibrant hue, and traced an exploratory line across her page. The mark felt liberating, yet every stroke that followed was met with the clamor of self-doubt. Is this good enough? Will it resonate? As she painted, tension twisted in her gut.
She was caught between the desire to harness her creativity and the nagging fears of inadequacy. But with each passing minute, the symbols she created began to take form. Not merely shapes, but reflections of her journey, her struggles, and her aspirations. Near the end of the session, as she stepped back to view her work, a profound sense of empowerment cascaded over her. The feelings she thought would hold her captive
instead became the vessels of her expression, breathing life into her creations. But even amidst this clarity, Emily felt a tug in her heart, thoughts of James rippling through her mind like waves crashing upon shore. Would he understand this new fervor? Would he support her art, or would he see it as an intrusion on the life they once planned together? Torn between two worlds, she packed up her sketches with a flicker of both joy and trepidation. The door to her artistic aspirations had cracked open, but the fear of judgment and potential disapproval loomed larger, eclipsing her newfound confidence. As she stepped back out into the city's pulse, thoughts of tomorrow's confrontation with James began to cloud her enthusiasm. How would she explain her artistic journey? Would it bridge the distance forming between them, or deepen their divide? With each step home, uncertainty filled the space where hope and anxiety intertwined. Would she be ready to face James, declaring her truth amidst the turmoil of their perceived expectations? Or would she falter, afraid to risk everything she held dear? The dichotomy resonated, amplifying the conflict between heart and ambition. The stage was set. The next step would be pivotal. She could embrace her path or retreat into a comforting familiarity. The decision awaited her, heavy yet exhilarating, a true test of her convictions. What would she choose when the moment of truth arrived? Emily woke up the next day with a sense of determination rippling through her, propelling her toward the confrontation with James that weighed heavily on her mind. The distance between her aspirations and his expectations seemed an insurmountable chasm, but she felt a flicker of courage sparking there, igniting a quiet resolve to express her truth. As the hours passed, Emily's thoughts vacillated between excitement and apprehension, wrapping her in a mental tug-of-war. She found herself pacing the small kitchen, her heart galloping with every imagined scenario of their meeting. Cooking, too, became a canvas for her anxious energy. She chopped vegetables and stirred sauces with an intensity that echoed her internal struggles. Each slice was a reminder of the choices she was making, of the life she was beginning to carve out. It wasn't until she caught her reflection in the window that a new thought emerged. Who was she beyond James? The weight of that question hung in the air, pulling her away from the mundane task of preparing dinner. She closed her eyes, recalling the brush strokes and the colors from the open studio. Art was emerging as a pathway to reclaim herself, each piece a means to confront the confines of her past identity. Perhaps the conversation she was avoiding could catalyze her evolution. When the clock struck 6, Emily steeled herself. Facing James was inevitable. She could no longer push her artistic desires aside for fear of misunderstanding. As the door swung open and he stepped inside, the warmth of the evening mingled with a tangible tension in the air, a palpable, silent communication of what was about to unfold. "Hey," James said, his smile faltering slightly as he sensed the shift in her demeanor. "Hey," she replied, her voice steadier than her insides felt. Dinner unfolded in a series of mundane exchanges, but beneath the surface she felt an undercurrent building. The table was filled with familiarity, yet Emily began to view it as a battleground. With every bite of food, she grappled internally with the urgency of her night's true purpose. She finally cleared her throat, feeling the weight of her words and the heaviness around them. "James, I've been thinking about us," she began, stalling as the words tangled in her throat. Suddenly, the studio, the colors, and the strokes felt like distant echoes of another world, one she had hesitated to introduce to him. "What do you mean?" he asked, searching her expression for the familiar comfort he expected. I've been exploring art again. At this studio, it's been liberating." Her voice trembled slightly, but the fire of revelation burned brighter. "I think it's important for us to talk about what that means for our future, for my future." A momentary silence enveloped them. James looked lost, his brow furrowed with confusion. "Emily, I thought we had plans together. I thought this was what you wanted." "And how can I want that if I don't even know who I really am?" she countered, her voice sharper now, craving assurance even as she spoke with conviction. The stirring deep within her felt both exhilarating and terrifying. She was crossing a precipice, one that could leave them fractured or bond them anew through truth. "What do you really want, then?" James pressed, an undercurrent of concern replacing his earlier complacency. Emily felt the room closing in, her pulse racing as adrenaline coursed through her veins. "I want to create. I want to express myself without holding back." The weight of James's gaze pinned her to the moment. She could see the disbelief etched across his face, battling against her expectations. It was a confrontation she had prepared for, yet was wholly unprepared to navigate. Was this the culmination of her internal struggle? Every fiber in her being told her it was essential to push forward, but as his eyes bore into hers, uncertainty threatened to shatter her resolve. But what if he couldn't accept this part of her? What would that mean for the life they'd built? As silence hung thick between them, Emily was left on the precipice. Would she stand firm in her newly forged identity, or retreat under the weight of misalignment with James? Feeling the ground shift beneath her, she braced for the response that could make or break her struggle for authenticity. In that moment, clarity mingled with fear, and she realized this could either solidify her journey or unravel everything. There was no turning back now. The moment was upon her. Would she choose art, authenticity, or cling to the relationship that felt comforting yet stifling?
What would they ultimately mean to each other in the wake of this truth? As the silence stretched between them, Emily felt the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. The reality of her revelation began to crystallize. This was not merely a conversation about art or ambition. It was an unmasking of her identity, a plea for validation amid a relationship bound by shared expectations and unspoken dreams. James finally broke the stillness, eyes narrowing as he searched her face, perhaps for signs of the woman he once knew, the one who had stepped into their carefully mapped life. "Emily, you've always loved painting, but do you really think this is the right time to suddenly change everything? We've worked so hard for what we have." His words felt like a chill, a reminder of the safety she would sacrifice. "It's not about changing everything," she countered, a newfound firmness punctuating her voice. "It's about allowing myself to grow. I can't keep molding myself into someone I'm not just to fit a picture we drew together." James shifted in his seat, discomfort flickering across his face. The tension in the air thickened as she watched him wrestle with her words, the reality of her aspirations clawing at their once comfortable routine. "Emily, I want to support you, but I also want us to be a team. Teamwork means compromise." The genuine worry in his tone inspired a fresh wave of self-doubt within her. Was she being selfish? Yet in that moment of uncertainty, Emily felt a spark, a reminder of the vibrant colors of her dreams. Compromise shouldn't erase who I am. I can't start dimming my light for the sake of a partnership that already feels confined. That's not healthy for either of us. He could see him processing her words like puzzle pieces. A part of her longed for him to reach out, to recognize her as both his partner and an individual worthy of her own narrative. James's brows knitted tightly, frustration breaking through his earlier concern. But what if this art thing doesn't work out? What if it changes who you are in ways you can't foresee? His fear echoed in her mind, but when she looked inside herself, it was intertwined with resolve. What if it does work out? What if it helps me find strength I didn't know I had? I need to explore this for my own sake. A hush fell again, heavier this time. Emily realized this moment demanded more than mere words. It posed a fundamental question of their relationship. Could it survive her evolution? Every breath felt loaded with significance. Drawn toward the truth she needed to express, she pressed on. I may need space to recreate myself, and I hope you can find a way to be supportive of that. For us, for you, and ultimately for me. She held her breath, uncertainty swirling within her. What would he choose? The shift in James's expression was subtle, but
Critical. One moment he was defensive, battling a rising tide of fear, and the next, a flicker of realization crossed his features. The understanding that love didn't belong in a box or a static formula. I don't know if I can accept a version of you that might look entirely different from the Emily I fell in love with. His voice was barely above a whisper, a tremor running through the words. When uncertainty met her unwavering spirit, something stirred within. Emily knew they were standing in a doorway. Beyond it lay the unknown. She reached out and took his hand, a gesture of hope and necessity. You might not see her yet, but I promise there is so much more to come. Let's explore it together, or apart, but I cannot allow doubt to dictate my path anymore. Their fingers tangled, a moment of connection amidst a storm, drawing strength from one another, even as they faced an uncertain horizon. A new fear melted into resolve within her core. She could navigate this storm. She had begun the journey to reclaim herself. And no matter how this conversation unfolded, she was prepared to see it through. But as James pulled his hand back, an unreadable expression plastered on his face, Emily felt the dread settle back in. Had he pulled away to protect himself? Or was he drawing a line in the sand? The impending fallout loomed like thunderclouds, waiting to erupt as she braced for the reality of their evolving relationship. What choice would he make that could alter the course of both their lives? And more importantly, could she hold steadfast in her conviction, no matter the outcome? Emily stood at a crossroads, the gravity of her choices weighing heavily upon her. The aftermath of her conversation with James had been a tumultuous ride. As the days turned into weeks, she had resolved to explore her artistic aspirations while navigating the complexities of their relationship. Jointly, they had chosen to give each other space, an open door to self-discovery that both frightened and excited her. In this newfound solitude, Emily immersed herself in her art. Each brushstroke became a powerful act of reclamation. She dedicated herself to nightly studio sessions at Raw Expressions, painting her dreams and fears into tangible pieces. Her canvases transformed from blank slates to vibrant expressions of her soul. Each painting told a story. Each color transformed torment into triumph, revealing dimensions of her identity she had buried for far too long. But alongside her personal evolution came the bittersweet pangs of missing James. Emily realized that she had genuinely cared for him. His warmth, humor, and companionship had become woven into her being. Yet the love she had for James was now juxtaposed with a fierce love for herself. The need to nurture her own dreams and passions became the foundation of her growth. She began to see her art not merely as a profession, but as a vital artery of her identity, the lifeblood fueling her existence. One glowing Saturday, Emily prepared for an open gallery exhibition at Raw Expressions, an opportunity to showcase her very first collection. The theme of her series was intersection, inspired by her journey of navigating her personal and artistic identity while redefining love and commitment. Each piece encapsulated various stages of her internal struggle: fear, liberation, joy, and resolve. She felt a bubbling excitement as she arranged her artworks, ready to share her truth with the world. When the doors finally opened, the space filled with the hum of curious visitors. Emily's heart raced as she welcomed friends and strangers alike, faces lit with enthusiasm. Sarah beamed at her, pride etched across her features, while others enthusiastically immersed themselves in her work. Emily greeted them, the thrill of validation igniting her spirit. She reveled in the achievement and the conversations that blossomed from her artistry. But amid the joyous chaos, she felt a tugging anxiety, questioned the decision she had made about James. "Is he okay?" she pondered. It felt like an essential void in her triumph, one she had inadvertently left unaddressed. With exhilaration mingling with trepidation, she pulled out her phone and typed a tentative message. "Hey, would you like to come to my exhibit today? It means a lot to me." His reply came back quickly, and when he finally arrived, Emily's heart fluttered. As she approached him, the familiar warmth flooded her with emotion. "You came!" James looked around, taking in the artwork, the stories woven into each piece. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." As they began to talk, she noticed a shift in him. The tension of their previous conversations seemed to dissolve, replaced by genuine curiosity about her journey. "These are incredible," he remarked, leaning in closer to her resilience painting. "They capture so much. You've blossomed." Her heart swelled. They stood together, focused on her art, sharing in her growth, and for the first time, Emily felt more complete. The weight of uncertainty she had carried began to lift as the evening deepened into meaningful conversations about life and aspirations. Eventually, she gathered her courage and spoke what had been sitting heavy in her heart. "I've realized that pursuing my own dreams is not meant to detract from what we had. I want to share my journey with you, if you're willing to join me, to explore it together." James looked into her eyes, searching for clarity, and with genuine sincerity, he said, "I've been doing some thinking too. I've learned that supporting you doesn't just mean standing by your side. It involves letting you shine in ways I didn't fully understand." They stood in that gallery, a vibrant symphony of dreams and aspirations pulsating around them. With time, they might redefine their connection, embrace the depths of who they were both becoming. The willingness to explore the unknown, despite the risk of hurt, felt remarkably liberating. Emily took a step back, their fingers brushing. As the evening unfolded, guided by laughter
and tenderness, she felt lighter, her heart brimming with newfound clarity. She understood now that true transformation wasn't a solitary journey. It thrived within authentic connections that honored her newly defined self. The gallery hummed with life, and as she absorbed the validation of both herself and her art, Emily embraced the beautiful uncertainty that lay ahead. The road was still uncharted, but today stood as a monumental achievement. She had conquered her fears and reclaimed her story, both as an artist and an individual. Emily had risen. She had not just achieved autonomy, but had forged a deeper understanding of love, one that balanced passion, ambition, and vulnerability. Now, more than ever, she was ready to embrace whatever came next, as an artist and as a woman, poised for boundless horizons. So, are you ready to join Emily on this journey of personal transformation? Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support more incredible journeys. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories know the importance of backing these narratives.